Hello New Zealand, I'm Philip Duncan, Aroha Nui. Well, across the country at the moment, settled weather is pretty much dominating. We do have a few afternoon downpours in the forecast, maybe even an isolated thunderstorm or two this week, but generally speaking, New Zealand's weather is actually quite settled, warmer than average and drier than average. So today's video is also going to show some of what is going on in northern Australia now that we've got a tropical cyclone, and that is where we kick off the video today. Tropical Cyclone Trevor. Of course, it was named by the Australian forecasters. So this is Tropical Cyclone Trevor, Category 1, likely to get up to Category 2, potentially even Cat 3, which makes it a severe storm. The good news is it is well north. It is north of most of the big populated centres and north of the tourist destinations as well. So this is the latest tracking from the Bureau of Meteorology in Australia. The good news is it may well be making landfall in a remote area away from any centres. It's also well north of the populated centres further down here, Cooktown, Daintree, and obviously getting down towards Cairns. So further north is better, but obviously there are communities up here, and once it goes out to sea, over the Gulf of Carpentaria, it may well deepen into a severe storm. So that's why we're going to keep a very close eye on Cyclone Trevor this week. Back in New Zealand for Monday, well, it is a warmer than average day. This is the departure from normal temperature map. In other words, how much hotter or cooler is it than normal? And at lunchtime or into the early afternoon, most of New Zealand is warmer than average by 4 to 8 degrees, so quite a mild setup. Perhaps only Waikato and some of these more eastern areas, including Christchurch, around about normal because you've got that airflow coming straight off the sea. So this is Tuesday around New Zealand. Get used to this forecast because high pressure dominates out around the Chathams. There's an anticyclonic wind flow around it, so there's a big easterly that's basically bunny hopping around New Zealand, comes in as a sou'easter, turns as an easterly, and comes into the Tasman as a nor'easter, a subtropical one. So out in the Tasman, rainfall totals this week 150 to 200 millimetres. Here on land, between 0 and maybe 20 millimetres for most of you. Most places are warmer than average and drier than average this week in the New Zealand area. By Wednesday, well, the cyclone is up here. That's why we've changed the map around a wee bit. So New Zealand down here, some drizzle patches in the morning, a couple of isolated downpours in the afternoon inland, otherwise dry and warm. Meanwhile, the cyclone makes landfall on Wednesday in northern Queensland. By Thursday, New Zealand's moving around a bit on the maps today. By Thursday, New Zealand out on this side, the low pressure that last week was looking likely to come in to northern New Zealand. So I wanted to show you today how close the models were over a week ago at showing these lows coming near us. But the reason why the models last week were wrong, why it is not coming in directly to our north, simply because that high is expanding. And that was what we said last week. If the high just breathes in and expands out a little bit like our lungs do, it pushes this back away from us, and that's really what's happening this week. The high is so big, so dominant, pushing the rain away, and not only that, the rain in the Tasman, it's also pushing that more towards Australia as well. Some of it does curve around on Thursday though around Fiordland, and you might get some of that into Southland as well. Let's go to Friday, and as we kick off the start of the weekend, drizzle patches around the New Zealand area turn to afternoon downpours or showers in both islands. It's still mostly dry in most areas, but that's just the setup as we head in towards the weekend. Light easterlies in the top and calm winds really for everybody else. Now you can see Cyclone Trevor back out at sea in the Gulf of Carpentaria. This is where it may well deepen and become a severe Category 3 storm. And we end on Saturday where this is a pretty big storm making perhaps its second landfall. And the weird thing is it might actually end up bringing wind and rain to Alice Springs in the middle of the desert there. So one to keep an eye on because its tracking after this is unsure. Clearly it will be falling apart being over land, but it's one still to keep an eye on for us. And by the way, speaking of New Zealand, the same forecast still on Saturday. Light easterlies at the top, very light nor'westers at the bottom, and a few big showers here and there in the afternoons following the morning drizzle spells. And that is all from me on what has been obviously a very sad past few days, and that word doesn't even come close to explaining it. So to everybody this week across the country, obviously our thoughts are all with the Muslim community, and as New Zealanders, we're all sticking together as one, which is just really great to see across social media and across all the news. So it's going to be a bit of a strange week this week, but from everyone here, Aroha Nui, kia kaha, and we'll see you again tomorrow.